Level 1. Horse Poop Collector. You get kicked by horses for a living, sleep in poop, and in 20 years you'll be running 200,000 people. Right now, your only meal is in a manure trench. You're 19, paid in rice. This morning, a samurai named Makasu kicked your bowl into the dung. Rice costs more than you do. You eat it anyway because you're poor and poor doesn't get a second bowl. That night, bandits hit the stable. You grab a shovel. First one you catch across the jaw. Second one opens your arm with a blade. You're bleeding, outmatched, swinging at anything that moves. You don't win. You hold for 90 seconds long enough for the garrison to wake. Samurai arrive, bandits scatter, and you're on the floor bleeding with a shovel you won't let go of. An old man watched from the grain storage. He wasn't watching your technique. He was watching something else, and what he saw is why the samurai who kicked your rice into the manure will one day sit across from you, starving, begging you to fill that bowl. Level 2. Ashigaru. Tessie, the old man from the grain storage, puts you in the back row of the domain spear corps not for your talent, but for your ability to absorb a hit meant for someone more expensive. You're handed a Yari, a 6-foot bamboo spear you can barely lift, straw armor that smells like the last 3 men who wore it, and didn't survive long enough to return it, and a position behind soldiers who've drilled since childhood. Your tactical value. If someone has to die first, it should be the person who cost the least to train. You've been promoted from cleaning up after war horses to standing in front of them during a charge. Spear drills. 30 men moving as a wall, thrusting at the same angle, the same heartbeat. You're terrible. Shovel muscle memory plants your weight wrong, makes your thrust arrive a half beat late. The squad captain hits you with a bamboo rod he calls correction. Correction never explains. Correction never misses. You learn by what doesn't hurt. First border skirmish. A neighboring domain pushes scouts across the river. Your unit deploys at dawn. Second row. The man in front of you, 30s, father of 2, name you never learned, takes an arrow through the throat and falls backward into your chest. His blood is on your armor before his body finishes deciding it's dead. You hold the line. Your hands don't shake. The captain moves you to front row. Front row is either a promotion or a death sentence. In the Ashigaru Corps, those are the same document. Your spear costs more to replace than your funeral. Armor is on loan if you die. A quartermaster strips it before your family collects what's underneath. You eat what cavalry horses don't finish. At night, on garrison duty, you practice footwork alone in the dark drills memorized through stable walls, ear pressed to wood, building a library of movement you had no right to own. The formations you're stealing through plaster and pine will someday be taught as official doctrine in a castle training hall. The instructor will be you, but that's 3 ranks and a war from now, and the bamboo rod doesn't care about your future. You don't call it training. You call it the thing you do instead of thinking about the sound an arrow makes when it stops inside a man's throat. The rice bowl rides in your kit. Cracked. You eat from communal pots now. You don't use it. You don't throw it away. Formal inspection. Tessie walks the line. Stops at you. Studies your grip, your stance. The way you hold weight through the hips, not train balance, but balance. He turns to the captain. This one test for Okachi next season. Give him a sword and see if he kills himself or someone useful. He doesn't say which outcome he prefers. The door he just opened doesn't show you what's on the other side. Level 3. Okachi. You pass the sword test the way a drowning man reaches shore alive, gasping, aware it almost went the other way. Sword forms passable. Mounted approach. You fall off the horse twice. Written exam in military protocol, answered by repeating things you overheard through stable walls for 3 years. The examiner asks where you studied. The stable. He marks it as humor. You receive your first real sword, armor that fits like it was made for a different body it was. A border samurai who caught a spear through the ribs last autumn and the rank of Okachi. Foot samurai. The word samurai now technically applies to you. The word foot ensures nobody forgets the asterisk. 2 decades from now, the asterisk disappears and 200,000 koku 1 koku feeds, 1 man for a year answered to the man who used to fall off horses during mounted exams. That fact hasn't been invented yet. Right now, you're trying to learn how to walk. Every born samurai walks from the hips, center of gravity low, as if the ground owes them something. You walk from the shoulders, stable hand posture. The etiquette instructor corrects you 14 times in 1 session. You carry yourself like you're about to be hit. You don't say, I was. Escort duty. Bandits hit a merchant caravan at a river crossing. You drop 2 attackers using something nobody taught you. You read their shoulders. Same twitch. Same half second. Same instinct that kept a horse from breaking your ribs and a bandit from splitting your skull. The captain's report. Unorthodox but effective. In samurai culture, unorthodox is a compliment the way interesting is a compliment at a restaurant. It means someone noticed something they can't categorize and they're deciding whether it's genius or a violation. You discover a samurai spends more time maintaining equipment than using it. You maintain yours with the same care you maintain the stables because care is care, whether you're polishing a saddle or a chest plate. The armorer watches. Most Okachi treat their armor like a costume. You treat it like it's keeping you alive. It is. Makasu's name on a commendation scroll in the officer's hall, his banner commands the Ashigaru Corps on paper. Exemplary leadership during the border engagement. The border engagement was the skirmish where you held formation while the man in front of you died into your chest. You held the line. Makasu got the scroll. Credit flows uphill. Blame flows down. Makasu is climbing too. His bloodline is the fast lane. Your instinct is the long road. Both lanes end at the same castle. You're nowhere near it yet. Tessie summons you. The domain needs a Yoriki for the southern district. The last one drank himself into a ditch, literally. You can read men, read terrain, and you don't panic when someone dies in your arms. That's 3 more qualifications than your predecessor. He hands you a district map and a command seal. 40 Ashigaru. A border 2 rival domains consider negotiable. And a question nobody is asking yet: what happens when those 40 men find out their new commander learned swordwork through a wall? Level 4. Yoriki. Southern District. 40 Ashigaru under your command, most older than you, all aware your career began shoveling horse dung for men who never learned your name. Authority is currency you can hold but can't mint, not without the agreement of the people you're spending it on. 40 men who watched you arrive haven't agreed yet. First deployment. Border village reports missing livestock. You position 2 squads, 1 blocking the northern tree line, 1 cutting retreat at the creek. The veterans ignore your orders. Set up where they've always set up a ridge that covers the road but leaves the creek wide open. Bandits hit the creek gap. 2 Ashigaru take wounds that scar. The veterans reset to your original positioning without being told. Nobody mentions who was right. Compliance without acknowledgement. That's the apology you get in a hierarchy obedience that arrives one disaster too late to call itself respect. Water rights dispute. 1 headman connected to a senior retainer, the other controls your supply road. You rule for the road. Tessie hears through channels that don't officially exist, says nothing. 2 weeks later, your allocations improve by 1/3. Silence is Tessie's highest currency. Then the real test arrives. 60 Ronin organized, armed, someone's funding them hit a border town at dawn. You have 40 Ashigaru and a river ford. You funnel them through the narrows, hold with spears, flank with your 6 best swordsmen on a goat trail the Ronin didn't scout. 40 minutes. You lose 4 men. They lose 19. You write 4 names in the margin of the battle report. The senior council reads the ratios, the terrain, the territory secured. Nobody reads the margin. 4 families will receive a rice stipend and a letter that uses the word honor 6 times without explaining how honor feeds children. Makasu arrives 2 days later. Liaison, in practice. An observer sent to watch you fail. He watched the battle from a hilltop where nothing could reach him. His report. Fortunate terrain advantage. Your dead men's names don't appear. Yours appears once, misspelled. Not hostility, something more efficient erasure. Promotion to Haishi. House Samurai. Clan retainer. You're entering the family structure now, the one where bloodline is currency and yours is counterfeit. The stable is 6 years behind you. The armor still fits like it belongs to a dead man. It does. The rice bowl sits at the bottom of your kit wrapped in cloth. A young Ashigaru asks why a Yoriki keeps a cracked wooden bowl. It reminds me what meals cost. He nods like he understands. He will, the first time someone under his command doesn't come home. Level 5. Haishi, Castle Town. Real walls. Tatami floors. A writing desk of camphor wood worth more than 2 years of your previous rice salary. And a genealogy document, sealed with the domain's crest, tracing your lineage 4 generations to a minor retainer branch. Every name is fabricated. Your real genealogy goes 1 generation back: a mother who washed clothes, a father who left before you could form a memory of his face. In samurai culture, bloodline is your resume. Yours is ink and the mutual agreement not to look too closely. Someone always looks. You're now responsible for the domain's sword curriculum. The irony is precise enough to cut. You learn technique by pressing your ear to stable walls. and now you certify whether born samurai perform those same forms correctly. You rename the shoulder reed the instinct that saved your life against horses, bandits, and a man with a short sword in a dark stable pre-movement awareness. You give it a formal name because instinct from a stable is suspicious. A technique with a name is curriculum. A clan elder's son challenges you during a demonstration. 16. Born into rank, you clawed through manure to reach. Faster. Better technique. Never been hit by something that wanted to kill him. You read his shoulder. Counter before he commits. Floor 3 times in 40 seconds. You offer your hand. He takes it. His father watches from the gallery and does not bow but adjusts his posture. In clan politics, that's a bow rendered at lower resolution. Tessie teaches you something the sword can't. You write a financial reform report, ceremony costs bleeding the treasury. He reads it. Correct analysis, terrible timing. The daimyo's wife is planning the autumn ceremony and you explained why it's too expensive. Present this after the festival or you'll be correct and unemployed. You learn that being right is a weapon. Like all weapons, it matters when you draw it. A neighboring daimyo demands tribute passage 400 retainers. Full regalia. Procession to Edo. Refusal means war. Acceptance means submission. Third option. Grant passage, route them through the narrowest mountain road. Single file for 6 hours. The visiting lord's retinue arrives exhausted, mud-spattered, and humiliated by geography. Inconvenience so precise it can't be formally protested. The visiting lord complains to no one because admitting a road defeated you is worse than the road. Power isn't the sword, it's the map. Formal dinner. Makasu Senior Haishi now. Your nominal equal, but with 9 generations of real blood, introduces you to a visiting dignitary. Our most interesting retainer, he brings a certain earthy perspective to strategy. The table laughs. You pour his sake without expression. The man who doesn't react to an insult is either powerless or terrifying. Makasu hasn't figured out which one you are. You're starting to. The rice bowl sits on your writing desk. A visitor asks if it's a tea ceremony piece.
Family heirloom, you say?
The lie fits inside a cracked wooden bowl and doesn't rattle. But the question nobody's asking, and the one that keeps you awake, is how long a genealogy made of ink survives in a world that checks the paper. Level 6. Hitamachi Gumi. The mountain road stratagem impressed the right people in the wrong way. You've been elevated to banner-bearing elite household retainers, a stipend that needs its own ledger, and a ceremonial banner worth more than your first 5 years of rice combined. The banner carries your fabricated family crest, a mountain and a river. You chose them because those were the only things visible from the stable. Nobody asks why. In a world built on symbols, the safest origin story for a symbol is silence. You now manage people who manage people. 3 servants, 2 retainers. A stable boy who reminds you of someone you used to be. The promotion sounds like wealth. The math sounds like drowning. Your stipend covers expenses if you skip every ceremony, host nobody, and maintain 0 appearances. Since your entire position is ceremonies and appearances, you're underwater before month 1 ends. You cut meals from 3 to 2 and tell retainers it's a disciplined practice. They believe you because they want to. The stable boy 14, sharp, terrified of everything that outranks him, which is everything breaks a ceremonial saddle worth more than his family earns in a year. Domain protocol. 30 lashes or dismissal. You fix it yourself at night using leather techniques from the horse stable. Same hands that mended bridles at 19 mend a saddle at 27. The boy never knows. Your head retainer does. Next morning he stops saying, "Sir," in the tone that means, "I suppose." Loyalty isn't purchased with stipends. It's purchased with the things people see you do when you think nobody's watching. Someone is always watching. Regional council. You sit with men whose grandfathers built this table. Your grandfather sat on the floor. You say nothing for 3 hours. When you speak 90 seconds, you propose a garrison rotation that cuts winter supply costs by 40% without reducing border strength. The room goes quiet, not because you're wrong. Because the man who came from nowhere proposing the sharpest strategy at the table is a threat that genealogy can't address. In rooms you'll never enter, men are starting to use a word about you that nobody uses about retainers with fabricated bloodlines. The word is indispensable. It sounds like a compliment. It isn't. Indispensable means they can't let you leave. The daimyo now watches 2 men. One with 9 generations of blood, one with 9 years of results. Only one of them will sit in his chair. Tessie stopped appearing at council 6 months ago. You didn't ask why. Men like him don't explain exits. The daimyo hands you the investigation. A senior retainer skimming domain rice tax revenue vanishing into accounts that don't reconcile. He sends you because you have no blood ties to either faction. You investigate. He's guilty. You present the evidence knowing his family has 9 real generations, and yours has 4 fictional ones. Stripped of rank, his son swears publicly to see you removed. The cost of being the domain's cleanest hands. They send you where the dirt is. The dirt remembers who found it. Through intermediaries, a message from Makasu. The disgraced retainer was his uncle. The stable boy should remember where he eats. You remember. You still have the bowl. Level 7. Haka. Inner circle. The investigation made you 2 things. Trusted by the daimyo, hated by half the clan. Both are qualifications for the inner circle where decisions happen in rooms that don't appear on maps and influence is measured in favors nobody writes down. Your job. Manage alliances while men who believe their blood entitled them to define the domain's future watch you like a fire they haven't decided whether to feed or smother. First assignment. Marriage alliance the daimyo's niece to a neighboring domain's heir. The bride doesn't want to go. The groom is known for cruelty. The alliance prevents a border war that kills hundreds of Ashigaru, the same rank of men you once stood beside, the same rank that eats what horses don't finish. You negotiate the terms. You trade 1 woman's life for 200 men's. The math is correct. The math is the problem. You meet the bride once. She doesn't cry. That's worse. Makasu strikes with paper, not steel. He funds a records examiner to investigate your genealogy. The examiner finds inconsistencies, dates that don't align, a generation gap requiring a man to father a son at age 11. You find the examiner first. Over tea, always tea, because violence is crude and tea is administrative. You explain that the daimyo personally authorized your lineage. Questioning it is questioning the daimyo's judgment. Report filed. No irregularities. He doesn't mention the tea. You don't mention the 3 corrected documents you placed in the archive the night before his visit. The best defense against someone investigating your past is making sure your past is already where they'll look, saying what it needs to say. Makasu escalates. Formal audience. Full council. This domain is governed by a man whose family crest was chosen from a stable window. The room holds its breath. The daimyo lets silence stretch 5 seconds in eternity where posture is policy, then asks Makasu to name 1 military victory, 1 reform, or 1 diplomatic success he's delivered. Makasu lists his bloodline. I ask for achievements, not ancestors. Makasu leaves. His face is the color of old paper. You watch him go. Feel nothing productive. 30% of the domain's rice tax is being skimmed through phantom villages settlements that don't exist, collecting revenue for retainers who've been stealing for 2 decades. Exposing it topples the old guard. Not exposing it bankrupts the domain in 4 years. The daimyo. Fix it without names. Cleaning corruption while pretending nobody's corrupt, it's like cleaning a stable without acknowledging horses. 3 retainers retire with honor. Everyone knows why. Nobody says. The daimyo summons you alone. Aging. His heir is 17 and unprepared. I need someone who doesn't need my bloodline to run my domain. Someone who's the best person in every room he enters, even when the room won't admit it. He names you Regent Guardian until the heir reaches 25. Full domain authority. A man whose childhood smelled like horse manure is now, functionally, a lord. The rice bowl sits on your shelf. You hold it that night alone. The crack runs through the center like a fault line. You could replace it with porcelain. You don't replace things that taught you something. But the weight of what just happened, 200,000 koku, 300 samurai, 40 villages answering to a fabricated bloodline hasn't reached your hands yet. It will. By morning, half the council will be deciding whether to serve you or destroy you, and the answer depends on which costs less. Level 8. Daimyo. The old lord dies on a winter morning, the kind of quiet death that rearranges everything loudly. His heir is 19 and terrified in the way young men with too much title and not enough experience are terrified silently, with perfect posture. 3 factions want the heir declared unfit. 2 propose regency under their own families. You stand before the transition council and read the sealed decree. Regent Guardian with full domain authority. 200,000 koku. 300 samurai. 40 villages. A stable boy is now functionally a lord. The hierarchy didn't plan for this. It rarely plans for the thing that actually happens. First petitions. Tax relief. Famine. Temple funding. Border reinforcement. The same domain you humiliated on the mountain road has been making sounds that mean preparation. Every decision costs something and angers someone you can't see. You solve the merchant's problem by rerouting trade through a road you built as a Eureki. Everything you've ever done is infrastructure for decisions you didn't know you'd make. The heir tests you. Moves a garrison from a critical pass to a ceremonial posting near his mother's estate. You comply publicly. Privately rotate a second unit into the pass under a training exercise. The heir discovers it in a week. You explain. Your order was respected. The domain is also protected. When those two things conflict, I find the third option. Furious for 7 days. On the 8th, he asks what a third option looks like for the temple problem. Mentorship begins not the kind announced with ceremony, the kind that happens when someone young watches someone older choose correctly under pressure and starts asking how. The border crisis. The neighboring domain has been arming Ronin to destabilize your southern district, the same district you defended with 40 Ashigaru and a river ford. Back when 4 dead men was a number you wrote in the margin. Evidence confirms it. War drains the treasury you rebuilt. Peace signals weakness. Third option. Invite the neighboring daimyo to a formal tea ceremony at the disputed border. Build the pavilion on the exact mountain road where his procession was humiliated. Don't mention the location. Let the geography speak. He walks the same stones, sees the same narrow pass, remembers, signs a border agreement before the second cup. You've weaponized hospitality. The stable boy who shoveled manure now serves tea that ends wars. Across the pavilion, standing behind the neighboring daimyo like a shadow with a grudge, Makasu. He defected, chose the enemy because you became the thing he couldn't. Necessary. Your eyes meet across the room. Same face that laughed when your rice bowl hit the manure trench. He looks away first. That's the first time in over 20 years. He looked away because he's out of rooms. Men who run out of rooms either surrender or destroy themselves. You know which kind Makasu is. Level 9. Retired daimyo. The heir turns 25. You transfer authority in a ceremony attended by 400 retainers, 3 neighboring lords, and a shogunate representative. The heir bows full bow, forehead to tatami, the kind a son gives a father. Half the room spent years trying to remove you. The bow makes the record permanent. Your title now means you've surrendered power and kept influence, the only form of power that doesn't require sitting through petitions about irrigation. Makasu arrives 3 months later. Not as an enemy, as a petitioner. The domain he defected to has collapsed. Internal rebellion. Treasury gutted. Daimyo deposed by his own council. Makasu has no patron, no position, no clan willing to attach its name to his record. He sits in your reception hall wearing the same crest he wore the morning he kicked your rice bowl into a manure trench nearly 30 years ago. He doesn't mention it. You both remember. You bring out the bowl. Same cracked wooden bowl. You fill it with rice from your personal stock. Set it in front of him. Eat. He looks at the bowl. He looks at you. He eats. Not because he's brave. Because he's hungry. And hunger doesn't have a pride budget. His words. Your terms. 30 years between the first bowl and the second. Some debts settle themselves. A young worker from the domain's horse stable is brought to your attention. 17. Caught stealing formation manuals from the garrison library. You asked to see him. He stands in your hall the way you once stood in front of Tessie, shoulders forward. Stable hand posture. Eyes reading the room before his mouth decides what to say. The shoulder read. You recognize it the way you recognize a language you invented that someone else just spoke back to you. You give him a practice sword. Back row, don't speak, don't die. Tessie's words, they tasted like opportunity in his mouth. They taste like recruitment in yours. Evening. The terrace. Mountains and a river, the ones on your crest. The ones visible from the stable where everything started. The rice bowl sits empty where Makasu left it. Somewhere in the domain, a boy with steady hands is practicing footwork he learned by listening through walls, wondering if this is all there is. Somewhere in the corridor, an old retainer is writing a note about the boy's potential, deciding whether to deliver it. The shoulder reed is the hook. The shoulder reed is the trap. And the practice sword is already waiting.